The explosion came without warning. One moment, Dr. Lara Vance was monitoring her high-energy probe's trajectory into the stable wormhole from her console at Kepler 186F research station, and the next, alarms blared as a surge of brilliant light engulfed the command center. Simultaneously, 30 kilometers away in Zargonian airspace, Commander Kalen Zor's reconnaissance vessel lurched violently as the same energy wave struck. Both felt a momentary sensation like being turned inside out before consciousness slipped away. Alara awoke first, the metallic taste of blood in her mouth where she'd bitten her tongue. Her vision swam with strange, ethereal patterns, translucent layers of energy that she'd never been able to perceive before. She blinked rapidly, trying to clear the hallucination, but the patterns remained, pulsing and shifting around her. Systems reboot in progress. The station's AI announced calmly, as if nothing unusual had occurred. Anomalous energy surge detected at wormhole perimeter. All personnel, report status. Alara's fingers trembled as she tapped her comm badge. Dr. Vance reporting. I'm functional. But she wasn't, not really. Something was terribly wrong. She could feel a foreign presence at the edges of her consciousness. Anxious, disoriented, definitely not human. 30 kilometers away, Commander Kalen Zor regained consciousness in his fighter craft, instantly aware that something catastrophic had happened. His species' natural ability to sense energy fields had always given him an edge in combat and reconnaissance. But now his mind was bombarded with mathematical equations and scientific concepts he'd never studied. Complex wormhole physics flowed through his thoughts with crystal clarity, though he couldn't possibly understand them. Commander Zor, respond immediately, came the stern voice of his Zargonian superior through the comm system. Reporting, Kalen managed, fighting disorientation. Vessel intact. I am. Functional. He could sense a human presence. Female, scientific, logical, touching his mind. Impossible. Their species couldn't form telepathic connections. Alara gasped as a surge of adrenaline that wasn't her own flooded her system. Her heart rate spiked in response to someone else's stress. Somehow, she knew exactly where Commander Zor was, could feel the pilot harness pressing against his chest as if it were wrapped around her own body. This was no ordinary accident. The energy surge had created something unprecedented, a quantum link between human and Zargonian. Commander, she whispered, knowing somehow he would hear her despite the distance. We need to meet. Engineering sublevel. Maintenance corridor C. 1 hour. She felt his surprise, then acknowledgement, before the conscious connection faded slightly. The background awareness remained, a constant presence hovering at the edge of perception. The Kepler 186F research station represented a fragile alliance between Terrans and Zargonians, two species with a complicated history of conflict followed by an uneasy peace. The joint research facility studying the stable wormhole had strictly segregated areas, with limited zones for necessary interaction. For Dr. Alara Vance to meet privately with Commander Kalen Zor would raise suspicion from both sides. Yet they had no choice. Whatever had happened between them was potentially explosive, politically and scientifically. Alara made her way through the station's corridors, nodding mechanically to colleagues while fighting to keep her expression neutral. The strange energy patterns continued to overlay her vision, making navigation challenging. Twice she stumbled, reaching out to steady herself against a wall. "Are you all right, Dr. Vance?" asked a concerned technician. "Fine," she replied curtly. "Just after effects from the power surge." In truth, she was experiencing waves of sensory input that weren't her own. The distinct smell of metallic polish used in Zargonian vessels. The subtle pressure difference in the Zargonian wing of the station, calibrated for their slightly different respiratory needs. And emotions, determination, wariness, and a fierce, protective instinct that felt utterly alien. Commander Kalen Zor was having an equally difficult time. As he docked his vessel and made his way through the Zargonian sector, he kept pausing as fragments of human scientific knowledge flickered through his consciousness. quantum field equations, wormhole stability calculations, theory and data that no Zargonian should possess without extensive study of Terran physics. His superior officer, Fleet Commander Traz, intercepted him in the corridor. "You diverted from your assigned patrol route," Traz noted, silver eyes narrowing suspiciously. Kalen straightened, forcing his facial ridges to remain calm, a Zargonian indication of honesty. "The energy surge disrupted my navigation systems. I was verifying the anomaly was localized to the wormhole. Vicinity only." He felt a spike of fear that wasn't his own. Dr. Vance was listening through him, concerned he would reveal their connection. He sent back a subtle wave of reassurance, not even certain how he was doing it. "Report to medical for evaluation," Traz ordered. "After I complete my incident report," Kalen countered smoothly. "Protocol requires documentation within one standard cycle." Traz nodded grudgingly. "Report to medical immediately afterward." Kalen proceeded toward the designated meeting point, aware of Alara's growing proximity. The quantum link between them strengthened as the physical distance decreased, and by the time he slipped into the maintenance corridor, her thoughts were as clear as spoken words. They came face to face in the dimly lit passage. The tall, silver-skinned Zargonian with his distinctive cranial ridges and remarkable violet eyes, and the human scientist with her dark skin, close-cropped hair, an expression of analytical intensity. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, adjusting to the bizarre reality of seeing the person whose consciousness they'd been experiencing. "This shouldn't be possible," Alara said finally. "Yet it is happening," Kalen replied, his voice deeper than she'd expected. "The wormhole energy interacted with my natural bioelectric field and your probe simultaneously, creating a quantum entanglement between our neural patterns," she finished, the scientific explanation forming in both their minds simultaneously. "A synchronization at the subatomic level." Kalen's eyes widened. "You can see energy fields now." It wasn't a question. He knew she could because he could sense her disorientation from the new perceptual layer. "And you understand complex Terran physics you've never studied," she countered. They both realized the immense danger of their situation at the same moment. If discovered, they would become immediate research subjects. The military wings of both species would see immense tactical value in their connection. The fragile trust between Terrans and Zargonians could collapse entirely. "We tell no one," Kalen stated firmly. Alara nodded. "We find a way to break the connection or control it." She hesitated. "But first, we need to understand exactly what's happening to us." They spent the next hour carefully testing the boundaries of their connection. It wasn't true telepathy. They couldn't read each other's complete thoughts or access memories. Instead, they shared current sensory information, emotional states, and certain knowledge domains, specifically those relevant to their respective specialties. The link had physical limitations. It weakened with distance, but never completely disappeared. Strong emotions made it flare unpredictably. And most disturbing of all, they discovered they couldn't deliberately block the connection. Even attempting to shield their thoughts caused physical pain for both of them. "We're going to need to establish boundaries," Alara said practically. "Ways to function without constantly distracting each other." Kalen nodded, his natural Zargonian reserve reasserting itself. "With practice, we may learn to filter the shared sensory information." Before they parted, they established a rudimentary internal signal system, intentional patterns of thought or physiological changes they could use to communicate discreetly. A deliberately increased heart rate would signal danger. A focused visualization of the wormhole would request immediate attention. As they returned to their respective duties, neither acknowledged the most troubling aspect of their new connection, the unwanted intimacy it forced upon them. Every quickened heartbeat, every adrenaline rush, every moment of frustration or relief was instantly shared. The days that followed tested them severely. Alara struggled to interpret the energy patterns now visible to her, often stopping mid-sentence during research meetings when particularly vivid fluctuations distracted her. Meanwhile, Kalen found himself spontaneously solving complex physics problems during mission briefings, earning suspicious looks from his Argonian colleagues. They met whenever possible in neutral territory, maintenance corridors, rarely used observation decks, once even in a storage compartment, to practice controlling their shared perceptions. Progress was frustratingly slow. "I can't focus with your constant mathematical calculations running through my head," Kalen complained during one session. "Yesterday, I nearly crashed during a simple training exercise because you were analyzing wormhole variance patterns. And your energy perception gives me migraines," Ilera countered. "Do you know how disorienting it is to suddenly see 12 different spectral layers while trying to calibrate sensitive equipment?" Yet despite their frustrations, they were beginning to adapt. Ilera found she could predict wormhole fluctuations with unprecedented accuracy by combining her scientific knowledge with Kalen's sensory input. And Kalen discovered his piloting skills had improved dramatically with Ilera's mathematical models unconsciously enhancing his natural abilities. 2 weeks after the accident, the situation at the research station deteriorated rapidly. The wormhole began exhibiting increasingly erratic behavior. Unpredictable energy pulses, spatial distortions, and gravitational anomalies that threatened the station's structural integrity. Standard analysis from both Terran and Zargonian scientists failed to explain or predict the events. During one particularly violent fluctuation, the station's primary power grid failed. Emergency systems activated, but several sections remained dangerously compromised. Ilera was in her lab when the lights went out. Through Kalen's senses, she immediately perceived the cascading energy failure spreading through the station systems. Simultaneously, Kalen felt Ilera's instantaneous calculation of which systems would fail next. Engineering level, she projected to him with deliberate focus. Junction Box 17C is about to overload. Kalen, who happened to be closest to that location, diverted from his evacuation route and reached the junction just as it began to spark dangerously. Using both his Argonian technical training and Ilera's engineering knowledge flowing through their link, he managed to reroute the power flow seconds before a catastrophic failure would have occurred. Throughout the crisis, they found themselves working in perfect tandem despite being physically separated. Ilera navigated through darkened corridors using Kalen's energy perception to avoid danger zones. Kalen executed complex technical repairs guided by Ilera's scientific understanding. Together, they addressed critical failures faster than any other team could have, saving dozens of lives. In the aftermath, as emergency repairs continued, they finally had a moment to process what had happened. "Our connection is getting stronger," Ilera said quietly, meeting Kalen in their now-established rendezvous point. "During the crisis, I wasn't just getting fragments of your perception. I was seeing completely through your eyes at times." Kalen nodded gravely. "I experienced the same phenomenon. When you were calculating the power distribution failures, I understood every equation as if I'd studied Terran physics all my life." They both recognized the implications. Their quantum link wasn't dissipating as they'd hoped. It was evolving, deepening. And for the first time, neither was certain they wanted it to stop. The crisis had also forced them into a new level of physical proximity. Stabilizing the link during high-stress situations required them to be near each other, and they discovered that brief physical contact helped regulate the more disorienting aspects of their shared perceptions. "Your colleagues are beginning to notice," Kalen observed. "The way you orient yourself toward my position, even when I'm in a different section." "Yours too," Ilera replied. "Commander Traz has requested your medical records 3 times in the past week." The mention of Traz sent a ripple of concern through their connection. The senior Zargonian officer had always been the most skeptical of the joint research initiative, viewing it as a potential security risk. If anyone would react negatively to their quantum link, it would be him. As they spoke, Ilera became acutely aware of Kalen's physiological state, his elevated heart rate, the subtle temperature changes in his silver-toned skin. More disconcertingly, she sensed a flicker of attraction that he immediately tried to suppress. The emotional bleed-through was becoming harder to ignore. During their forced collaboration, They'd gained intimate knowledge of each other that went far beyond typical colleagues or even friends. Alara had felt Kalen's carefully hidden uncertainty about his military past, his private questioning of Zargonian expansionist policies. Kalen had sensed Alara's profound loneliness, her frustration at having her research consistently undervalued by military commanders. Neither mentioned these insights directly, maintaining the fiction that their connection was primarily sensory and intellectual rather than emotional. But in unguarded moments, the truth slipped through. "We need to focus on the wormhole," Alara said, deliberately changing the subject. "Its behavior has become increasingly erratic since our accident." Kalen nodded, relief flowing through their connection as they returned to professional matters. "I've been monitoring the energy patterns. There's a regularity to the chaos that suggests a programmed sequence," Alara finished, the realization hitting them both simultaneously. This isn't random deterioration. Together, they began piecing together their unique perspectives. Kalen's ability to perceive subtle energy patterns, now enhanced by Alara's scientific framework, revealed structures invisible to standard instruments. Meanwhile, Alara's analytical approach, sharpened by Kalen's intuitive understanding of energy fields, identified mathematical consistencies that defied natural phenomena. "It's not a natural wormhole," Alara whispered as the truth became clear. "It's artificial, constructed by some ancient civilization. And it's activating," Kalen added grimly. "Each fluctuation is part of a startup sequence." The implications were staggering. An artificially created stable wormhole represented technology far beyond either Terran or Zargonian capabilities. If they were correct, the structure was awakening after perhaps millions of years of dormancy, potentially threatening the entire station. They spent the next 48 hours working feverishly, splitting their time between their official duties and their secret investigation. Their quantum link became an invaluable tool, allowing them to share insights instantly and work as a single integrated intelligence rather than two separate minds. Their behavior, however, didn't go unnoticed. Dr. Alara Vance, previously known for her methodical, by-the-book approach, began making intuitive leaps that eerily resembled Zargonian thinking patterns. Commander Kalen Zor, respected for his practical tactical focus, suddenly demonstrated an understanding of theoretical physics that raised eyebrows among his superiors. The confrontation came sooner than they'd anticipated. Alara was summoned to Station Director Harlow's office to find not only her Terran superior, but also Commander Traz waiting. "Dr. Vance," Director Harlow began without preamble, "your behavior has become concerning since the wormhole energy incident. You've been observed meeting privately with Commander Zor on numerous occasions, in violation of contact protocols." Traz's silver eyes fixed on her with cold suspicion. "You've also demonstrated knowledge of Zargonian energy perception techniques that no human should possess." Alara felt Kalen's alarm spike through their connection, followed by his immediate movement toward the administration section. She needed to stall. "The wormhole research requires cross-species collaboration," she replied carefully. "Commander Zor's unique perceptual abilities complement my analytical approach. This goes beyond professional collaboration," Harlow countered. "Security footage shows you responding to events in the Zargonian sector before communications were sent. You've demonstrated anticipatory knowledge of Commander Zor's movements and decisions. Are you engaged in unauthorized information exchange?" Traz demanded bluntly. "Or has some form of technological espionage been deployed?" Alara felt Kalen's presence growing closer, his determination flowing through their link as he navigated rapidly toward her location. They had prepared for this possibility, but had hoped for more time. Before she could formulate a response, the station's alert system activated with a piercing wail. "Critical wormhole destabilization in progress," announced the AI. "Gravitational anomaly detected. Station structural integrity compromised. Evacuation procedures initiated." The timing couldn't have been worse, or perhaps better, depending on perspective. The ancient artificial structure was entering what Alara and Kalen had determined was the final stage of its activation sequence. Without intervention, the resulting energy discharge would tear the station apart. Commander Traz's communicator buzzed urgently. "This discussion will continue after the current crisis," he warned Alara before addressing the emergency. As the station's leadership mobilized to manage the evacuation, Alara and Kalen established their strongest connection yet, shared understanding flowing freely between them. "We know what needs to be done," Kalen projected. "The wormhole's activation sequence can be stabilized, but the procedure requires simultaneous adjustments at both the quantum and energy field levels. Impossible for any individual to manage alone," Alara agreed. "But together, with our link, it's our only option," Kalen concluded. "Meet me at the main control center." The station shuddered as another gravitational wave struck. Alert messages flooded all communication channels as systems failed across multiple sectors. The evacuation was proceeding, but too slowly. Hundreds would die if the wormhole's activation completed in its current unstable state. Alara and Kalen converged on the main control center, where both Terran and Zergonian command staff were frantically attempting to mitigate the disaster. Director Harlow and Commander Traz were coordinating evacuation efforts when Alara and Kalen burst in. "We know how to stabilize the wormhole," Alara announced without preamble. All eyes turned to them, suspicion warring with desperate hope. "Impossible," stated the Terran chief scientist. "Our best models show complete. Collapse is inevitable at this point." "Your models are incomplete," Kalen countered. "The wormhole is not a natural phenomenon. It's an artificial structure activating after millennia of dormancy." Their announcement met with skepticism until Alara quickly displayed the evidence they'd compiled. Energy patterns match with mathematical sequences showing clear intelligent design. "Even if you're correct," Director Harlow said, "how could you possibly stabilize something of this magnitude?" The moment of truth had arrived. Alara and Kalen exchanged a glance, their connection humming with shared resolve. "During the initial energy surge, Commander Zor and I were affected by a quantum entanglement event," Alara explained. "Our neural patterns became synchronized at the subatomic level." Stunned silence greeted this revelation, followed by eruptions of disbelief and concern. "You've been compromised," Traz accused Kalen. "Neurologically manipulated by Terran technology." "No technology was involved," Kalen responded firmly. "It was an accidental interaction between Dr. Vance's probe and my natural bioelectric field, catalyzed by the wormhole's energy. We've kept it secret because we knew how both sides would react," Alara continued. "But now, this connection is the only thing that can save the station. It allows us to perceive and interact with a wormhole in ways neither species could manage alone." Another violent tremor rocked the station, more severe than the previous ones. Warning lights cascaded across control panels as structural integrity fell to critical levels. "We have less than 15 minutes before catastrophic failure," announced the Terran chief engineer grimly. Director Harlow's face hardened with decision. "What do you need?" "Full access to the primary energy control systems and sensor arrays," Alara said quickly. "And no interference," Kalen added. "What we're about to attempt requires complete synchronization between us." With the station literally breaking apart around them, neither leadership had much choice. Authorization was granted, and the control center was cleared of all but essential personnel. Medical monitors were attached to both Alara and Kalen as a precaution, displaying their vital signs on the main screen. Heart rates perfectly synchronized, brainwave patterns showing impossible harmony. They took positions at adjacent control stations, but their physical actions were almost secondary to the connection now blazing between their minds. As the final stabilization sequence began, their individual identities blurred. Alara's consciousness expanded to encompass Kalen's unique energy perception, while Kalen's mind accommodated the vast mathematical frameworks flowing from Alara. The assembled staff watched in astonishment as the pair worked in perfect unison without speaking, sometimes completing complex operations without even touching the controls, as if one would know precisely when the other had completed a necessary step. Through their shared perception, they could see the actual structure of the ancient wormhole mechanism, a magnificent lattice of energy and exotic matter, designed to create a permanent passage through space-time. Its activation sequence had been disrupted by centuries of cosmic radiation, causing the dangerous instability. Together, they made thousands of minute adjustments, recalibrating energy flows and quantum fields with precision no single operator could achieve. Where Terran science lacked understanding, Zargonian intuition filled the gaps. Where Zargonian perception needed analytical framework, Terran methodology provided structure. The process was excruciating. Maintaining such deep synchronization pushed their quantum link to its limits, causing physical pain as their brains struggled to process dual realities simultaneously. Blood trickled from Alera's nose, while Kalen's silver skin took on an alarming pallor. Still, they continued, driven by the knowledge that hundreds of lives depended on their success. In the final moments, as the wormhole approached its activation threshold, they executed the most delicate adjustment of all, a precisely timed phase shift that would align the artificial structure with the current universal constants, compensating for millions of years of cosmic evolution. A blinding flash of energy erupted from the wormhole, momentarily overloading all sensors. When systems recovered seconds later, the violent fluctuations had ceased. The wormhole hung in space, perfectly stable, its energy signature transformed into a harmonious pattern that posed no threat to the station. Alera and Kalen collapsed almost simultaneously, their connection temporarily overwhelmed by the massive energy discharge. Medical teams rushed to attend them as the control center erupted in shocked relief. They regained consciousness hours later in the station's medical bay, still connected, but with the link somewhat subdued by exhaustion. They found themselves under heavy observation, with both Terran and Zargonian medical specialists monitoring their condition. Director Harlow and Commander Traz arrived shortly after they awoke, their expressions grave but no longer openly hostile. "You saved the station," Harlow acknowledged. "But you also concealed a potentially dangerous condition with significant security implications. The quantum link between you represents an unprecedented development," Traz added. "Both our governments will require extensive study of this phenomenon." Alera and Kalen had expected this response. Through their connection, they shared a moment of resignation followed by determination. "We understand your concerns," Alera began carefully, "but we are not experimental subjects. We're individuals who have been altered by circumstances beyond our control. The link cannot be forcibly studied without causing us significant neurological damage," Kalen added, a statement they believed to be true based on their own investigations. "Any attempt to separate us could prove fatal to both." This last claim was perhaps an exaggeration, but not entirely unfounded. Their connection had become integral to their neural functioning. What followed were weeks of tense negotiations, medical examinations, and diplomatic maneuvering. The quantum link between a human scientist and a Zargonian commander raised profound questions about security, ethics, and the potential for further cross-species integration. Military leaders from both sides saw tactical advantages. Imagine reconnaissance teams with Zargonian perceptual abilities combined with human analytical skills. Scientific authorities envisioned research breakthroughs from truly integrated cross-species collaboration. Others feared the implications of blurred species boundaries and potential loss of cultural identity. Throughout these deliberations, Alera and Kalen remained at the center of a political storm, their personal experiences secondary to larger strategic considerations. The link between them continued to evolve, becoming more manageable but no less profound. They could now filter shared perceptions, creating a measure of privacy, but the fundamental connection remained unbroken. More significantly, they had stopped wanting it to break. What had begun as an unwanted intrusion had become something precious, a unique understanding that transcended normal communication. Through the link, They had experienced each other's reality in ways no other human or Zargonian ever could. The wormhole, meanwhile, had stabilized into its fully activated state. Research confirmed their theory. It was indeed an artificial construction, created by an unknown advanced civilization that had apparently disappeared millions of years ago. Its activation sequence had been triggered by specific energy emissions from the research station, a cosmic coincidence with nearly disastrous consequences. 3 months after the initial accident, a joint Terran-Zargonian committee delivered their final decision regarding Ilera and Kalen's situation. They would not be separated or subjected to invasive research. Instead, they would lead a new specialized division focused on studying both the artificial wormhole and the potential of quantum neural synchronization. The Kepler 186F research station was redesignated as the primary site for this initiative, with expanded facilities and reduced segregation between species. Ilera and Kalen's unprecedented connection had inadvertently created a pathway for genuine cooperation that political negotiations had failed to achieve for decades. On the evening following the announcement, they stood together in the observation dome, watching the now stable wormhole glow serenely against the backdrop of stars. Through their link, they shared a sense of wonder and possibility without needing words. "I never expected to understand a human so completely," Kalen said finally, his voice soft. "I, a Zargonian," Ilera replied. "It's still strange sometimes, having you in my head, but no longer unwelcome," he observed, feeling her agreement through their connection. The quantum link between them pulsed with shared emotion, no longer just an accidental bond, but a chosen path forward. What had begun with a catastrophic laboratory accident, a simple oops moment, had transformed into something neither of them would willingly surrender. As they contemplated the mysterious wormhole and the civilization advanced enough to create it, they recognized that their own unexpected connection might represent the first step toward an equally advanced future, one where the artificial boundaries between species could dissolve in favor of deeper understanding. "What do you think we'll find on the other side?" Ilera asked, gesturing toward the wormhole. Kalen's hand found hers, the physical touch sending ripples of heightened awareness through their link. "I don't know," admitted, "but whatever it is, we'll discover it together." The accident that was never supposed to happen had become the beginning of something neither had imagined possible, a future where us and them could gradually transform into simply we.